Hello everyone. This is where we ended last time, and we started with serial communication, starting of the serial communication, and then display something on the serial monitor. And uh, okay, now let me remove this and let us learn something else. Let us learn something about containers, the called variables over here. So let me call this topic as variables. Now, what is a variable? A variable is basically a container for data. Container for data actually means if you need to store something, for example, you need to store milk, so you need a utensil for it, okay? You need to use a utensil. So that means the utensil is the container for milk, or a container for water, or container for coffee, or whatever. So that means I need a container to contain something. And please remember, the container remains the same. The what it contains could be different. For example, a cup could contain milk, it could contain tea, it could contain coffee, it could contain water, it could contain anything. So, but a container of a particular type stores things of a particular type. For example, if we have different kinds of containers. Some containers big or small, some containers for storing dry stuff, some containers for storing wet stuff, and so on and so forth. Now, why am I telling you about all these is we need containers to contain data. Okay, so how, first of all, okay, you must have seen that I am writing slashes, I'm writing something with double slash. So when I write something with a double slash, it actually becomes a kind of a comment. It is a comment, okay? And once, what is a comment? Comment is a statement written inside a program which the system is not going to read. It is not going to compile it. For example, if I write something over here and which is not a comment, and if I start the simulation, it will say there is some error and it will say this is a problem. I don't understand POP. Okay, so that means if I remove these double slashes from here, and if I run this program, it will say this line has a problem, so it does not understand it. But this line did not have any problem because it has started with double slash, and the system says, okay, it is must be a comment uh, the programmer has written, so there's no problem. I leave it as it is. I'm writing all these as comments. Okay. First of all, let us learn about how many kinds of data are there. For example, we have different kind of stuff we need to contain. For example, dry stuff or wet stuff. So we need to understand what kind of data that we basically use in our um, Arduino programs, and that is basically C++. Now, I'll talk to you about int data type and float data type and string data type. Now, these are the three data types that we'll be talking about. The first data type is int data type. Int data type actually means uh, integers. It basically means no fra fractions. Okay. For example, what is the date today is 12. What is the month is 5. What is the year is 2025. How many people have watched this video is 1, 2, which is a 0 at the moment. Nobody has seen this video at the moment. Now, you know that these numbers can never be fractions. I cannot have a date with 12.1 as a number. I cannot have 5.6 as a month. I cannot have 2.2 to 2025.6 as the year. And I cannot have a fractional number as the number of people who have seen this video. So these are integers having no fractions at all. What are floats then? Floats are basically fractional numbers. So basically these are fractions. For example, it is 2.1 is a number, and we have okay. What is the temperature right now? Is 35.1 degrees Celsius. What is humidity is 99.1 percentage. So all these numbers are supposed to suppose there's a speed, for example, speed of a car is 62.3 kilometers per hour. So these speeds are, or whatever these numbers are supposed to have fractions every time. I cannot say that my car is running at 62, then it will run at 63, then it will run at 64. There is always a speed in between 62 and 63. So that is what we have. Okay, that is what is our concern at the moment. Strings are basically facts. These are not numbers, these are not values. These are facts, like hot is one fact, like cold is one fact. Okay, uh, like India is one fact, like angry is one fact. You saw that I have put all these values in double quotations. So anything you put in double quotes actually becomes a string. So if even if I write a 2.1, it actually becomes a string. So I think you should be okay with all this. Let me make these as remarks. Okay, what do we use this? Why do we use these variables? Why? I'll tell you. I'll give you a practical demonstration, and then we can figure out what. Okay. First of all, how to create variables? How to create variables? We write down the data type. I've given you the data types, and there are three data types that I've given you: int, float, and string. So we write the data type first, then we write the name of the variable that you want to create. For example, I want to create a variable called sum. Now, the naming convention of this, the rules for naming variables is that they should start with alphabets. Then you can write alphabets, numbers, or underscores. Okay. So after that, you can write, for example, I can have int sum underscore one. So this is a perfectly okay variable name. If I write int one sum, this is not an okay. If I run this program and see, you can see which line it is going to give an error now. It is giving an error on this one. Why? Because it says unqualified ID before numeric constant. So anyway, it basically requires something there. So we need to create variables like this. Okay. So what does okay, when I say int sum, I have created a variable called sum, and sum is a container now. Sum will contain some value. How do I store something into it? I'll say sum is equal to 165 and a semicolon. You notice that every statement in C++, it is basically ending with a semicolon. So I am ending everything with a semicolon. So what did I actually write now? In this line, in line number 8, I actually created a variable called sum, which is supposed to store ints. And in the next statement, I have assigned the value 165 to sum. So this means if I display the value of sum, what is it actually going to display? Serial dot println. And if I display the value of sum, what do you think it is going to display? You know that I need to start serial communication also. Begin 9600. So, so if I run this program, what is it going to display? Because the sum has value of okay, what is the problem? All right. When you create a variable in this area, the value is supposed to be written in the same line. Okay. Alright, so when I see the serial monitor, it displays 165. This high actually came from the previous program. Let me clear this. Let me run this program again. It displays 165. So you saw this now that I stored in the variable sum, I stored a value of 165, and when you display sum, it is going to display 165. What happens if I display sum here also? It is going to display 165. Let me stop the communication, stop the simulation, and copy it from here and paste it here. And if I run this program again, you will find that it displays 165 again and again and again. Okay. Now see the purpose of me writing that, creating that variable. If I don't want 165 to be displayed, I want a number, say 95 to be displayed. I just need to change the value of the variable once only, and everywhere it now changes to 95 now. So this sum is going to become 95, this sum is going to become 95, so it is going to display 95. Let us see now, it displays 95 now. So this is a small program, but in case you are writing larger programs, then this is very, very useful. Now I suggest whenever you write a small program or a bigger program, doesn't matter, please write, uh, create variables. What happens if I want a float variable, for example, float age is equal to 2.3. So what happened? I have created a variable called age, which has a value of 2.3. And now if I display this, it actually display if I display age, it displays this. Let me just remove this because I don't want this repetition again and again. So let us remove this and see on the serial monitor it displays 95 and 2.30. Okay, so that's done. Now similarly, I could use a variable, say name is equal to, I'll write Raj, and if I want to display Raj, I'll display Raj. I display name now. So when I run, it displays these three values. Now you can see I have used containers. I have stored something in the containers, and if I display the container, it displays the value which is stored in the container. I'm using the word container. The containers are actually called variables in your programs, in programming. I hope the use of variables is okay with you. Now please remember, if I use if I use the variable in double quotes, what is going to happen? When I use double quotes, it actually becomes a string. It is not a variable anymore. So when I use write name, it displays name, not what is stored in name. Let us see. So it has actually displayed name over there. It did not display the value of name. So please remember, whenever you are using variables, do not put double quotes or anything. Okay, this part is done. Another thing, variables created in this area, the area outside these two functions, is called as global area. So when we have this global area, any variable created in this particular area is available to all the functions. So that means if I try to display name here, will it display? Yes, it will display name here. Why? Because name being created in the global area can be used in any of the functions. I can use it here, I can use it here. But I can create a variable inside these functions also. So I can create a variable called x maybe, and I can say x is equal to 27. All right. And if I try to display the value of x here, will it display? Yes, it will display. Let's run this program. Serial monitor is running. And if I go back and see, uh, did it display the value of 27? Yes, it displayed the value of 27 here. But if I try to display the value of x in the other function, in the second function, what will happen now? See, it says this was not declared in this scope. So that means it requires x to be either declared in this scope, or it should be declared as a global variable. So x has not been created at all in the global area. No problem. It doesn't understand this. And x has been created in the setup function. It can be used only within the setup function. This thing should be very clear to you. So normally variables that you create which are supposed to be used by setup and loop, we normally create them outside this area. Okay, we create them in the global area. So I hope things are clear to you. Number one are, we talked about variables. Variables are basically containers. We talked about three data types. There are more data types, but these are the basic data types that we will be doing at the moment. So we talked about int data type, we talked about float data type, and we talked about string data. Int data types do not have fractions. Float are basically fractions. String are basically facts. They don't have any value, but they are facts. The global area, the area outside the two functions, is actually the global area, in which you create, when you create a variable, they can be used in both the functions, in all the functions. We will be creating more functions, but these are the two basic functions that have to be there. Okay. All right. So next thing, you notice that if I create a variable inside the function, we call this as a local variable. We call this as a local variable. These are called as global variables. You saw that I could create a variable in one line and assign it a value in the other line. But when I create it outside in the global area, you cannot do so. You can have to create and assign value in the same line. So this is something that is to be remembered now. Next, you know that we also learned about setup function and loop function. So setup function and loop function are supposed to be there. If I do not write setup function properly, if I give it a capital S, what do you think is going to happen? Let me start the simulation. It says, okay, the problem it says here. Let me remove this statement. All right. So it basically says undefined reference to setup. Although setup is there, but setup is actually starting with this with the capital S. So no, does not understand capital S. So please remember, anything that you create, uh, any variable that you create, doesn't matter. You can create it with capital or small, but I will explain to you what convention should you be using, and the inbuilt statements you are supposed to use exactly as they are given. So serial always start with capital S, setup is all small, loop is all small, and so on and so forth. I hope things are clear to you regarding variables, regarding global variables and local variables. We'll now meet in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.